So, you keep hearing about this Japanese language thing, and you're curious about how it actually works, but you don't want to sit down and watch a 1 hour video about how the language is structured. You don't even know if you like the language. Well, if you want a short introduction to how the language operates, you're in the right place. So, let's go through this together. Trevor in Tokyo. The first thing to know about when we are speaking Japanese is it follows a phonetic structure. It's composed of 5 vowels: a, I, u, e, o, which more or less corresponds to our a, I, o, and u vowels in the English language. It also contains a number of consonants, as are seen here, including the k, sh, t, n, h, da, and ya, as well as the denoted g, z, d, b, and p sounds. Altogether, this corresponds to many of the consonants that we have, but not all, in the English language. Pretty much all of the letters in Japanese are some conjugation of one of our consonants, as we've listed here, and one of the vowels. So, for instance, for the k consonant, we have ka, ki, ku, ke, and ko. So it's 5 different letters. So you imagine for every single one of these combinations, except for the Y, we have 5 different sounds that we can make from them. We also have a single standalone consonant, which is about the only case that you have a consonant that's not conjugated to a vowel, and that's the n sound. And that can occur in the middle of the word, but more usually it happens at the end of the word, and it's used a lot in different conjugations of the speech. In the example that I've given on the right, I have 3 different phonemes. I have the ka, ki, and ku sounds that you can see. An example word might be neko, which is composed of 2 Japanese letters, ne and ko, which together form the word cat. Yes, that furry creature up there in the corner is indeed a cat. There's some modifications to this general consonant-vowel structure in Japanese. You can have elongated vowels by adding an extra oo sound to it. So something like yo can be extended to yo, or something like oo can be extended to you. So you have a long vowel. You can also get more syllables in a few cases by conjugating one of the ya, you, or yo characters with a consonant plus I sound. So if you have the phoneme ki, you can conjugate that to kya, kyu, or kyo as well. Finally, you can have a long consonant by using a conjugation with, say, su characteristic. So as you see on the bottom here, the su sound can make the next consonant longer. So in the case of natsu, we can say natsu, natsu, or natto, which effectively just makes a longer second consonant. Now, when writing down these different letters, there are 3 different scripts that the Japanese have. The first and most elementary script is hiragana. Hiragana is composed of loopy, rounded characters for the most part. As you can see on the right, the neko that we had on the previous slide, meaning cat, is now displayed here as a character for you, as a 2 bits. Hiragana is used as both the alphabet or describing the different phonemes of the Japanese, but more commonly is used for conjugating words, specifically adjectives and nouns, as well as contributing to sentence structure. Katakana is the second type of script. It's given in the middle row here. The phonemes in hiragana and katakana are the same, so you still have neko and neko. They're just basically different forms of the same letters. Katakana, in written Japanese, functions mostly as we would think of as italics, or an emphasis type character. It can be used if you're spelling out specific given names, or foreign loan words, which include foreign names. So you, as a foreigner, writing your name in Japanese would use the katakana script. The final and most complicated type of characters are the kanji, which are Chinese characters, which have been adopted from China and grafted into the language. There's about 10,000 different kanji, 2,000 of which are pretty much necessary to be able to read everyday Japanese. Now, that can be daunting at first, but they are actually alphabetic characters. We can think of these most similarly in English as the Greek and Latin roots, where there are a lot of Greek and Latin roots. But if you generally know what the roots are, then in new words and new combinations of these Greek and Latin roots, you can more or less interpret what's going on. There's a similar thing here with these kanji, which were originally ideograms or more idealized pictograms. If I have a kanji for fire and a kanji for mountain, then if I put those together, the fire mountain means volcano. The other reason why kanji are particularly important is because Japanese doesn't have any spaces. So if you just have a stream of these alphabetic characters without any spaces, not only do you have homophones, but it's impossible to really parse the language easily. So having these kanji not only give you these root words, but they also break up the sentence structure in a way that spaces would have in Western style scripts. The other reason that you need kanji is because there's not as many syllables in Japanese as there is in other languages, including English. So there's a lot of homophones. And without some sort of designating characteristic for different words, it's hard to figure out what each word is. So using kanji breaks up the different ideas and helps make the given homophones unique for the context in which they're in. Where it's complicated, though, is of course there's 10,000 different kanji, and they can have multiple different pronunciations depending on their usage and conjugation. So it's a tough barrier, but it's not insurmountable. So in all three cases, in hiragana, katakana, and kanji, we have the word neko, meaning cat. Look at that fluffy little animal. Cute, isn't it? When it comes to the general structure of the sentences within Japanese, it does differ from English. In English, we have a subject, verb, object, or SVO order. What does that mean? Maybe you were falling asleep in English class in high school, or maybe you didn't pay attention. Well, let's review it now. The subject of a sentence is what the sentence is about, or the main purpose, doer, user of the sentence. The verb of a sentence is the action, what is going on. This verb can be more abstract or it can be more concrete, but it is an action which is being performed, and the conjugation of that verb gives the tense, or if it was performed in the past, the present, positively or negatively. Finally, the object of the sentence, which isn't always in every sentence, via the verb onto or with. So if we take it the sentence, the cat sleeps on the bed, the cat is the subject of the sentence. Sleeping, or sleeps, as it's conjugated, is the verb of the sentence, and the bed is the object of which the verb is being performed by the subject. Well, in Japanese, it's a little different. We have the subject, which is performing the action, the object, which the action is being taken upon or by, and finally, the verb. So in our sentence, the cat sleeps on the bed now becomes neko wa, the cat, bedo ni, on the bed, nemasu, sleeps. The cat sleeps on the bed. So now we know generally what the characters are which are being used in Japanese and how the sentences are being structured. How are they actually written on the page? Well, there's two different directions that Japanese as a script is typically written. There's the traditional method and the more modern method. In the traditional method, started from top to bottom on a page, going from right to left. So it's sequential lines 1, 2, and 3 will move slowly towards the left while being read down. However, possibly due to the influence of Western style writing and predominance in the media, the more common form of written Japanese that you'll see on signage and the like are from a left to right reading of the characters as you would have in English, where consecutive rows are from top to bottom on the page. Now, this is particularly confusing because if you've ever seen a Japanese novel or a manga or any sort of printed media, you'll know that traditionally Japanese print start from the pages on the right and move towards the pages on the left. So if you're reading from left to right and then from the right page to the left page, it is a little confusing. In both cases, we see the same sentence, neko wa arimasu. There is a cat, written in the traditional form from top to bottom and the more modern method from left to right. Let's talk about nouns, and specifically how different nouns come together to form compound words. I talked about previously how different kanji represent different basal characteristics, and the combination of different kanji can represent new words or ideas. For instance, we've seen many times now the word neko, meaning cat. But if I also include the kanji ko, meaning child, I can have the word ko neko, or child cat. What is a child cat? A child cat is a kitten, as you can see here. This cat is not a kitten. Now let's briefly talk about adjectives. Now, if you remember back to high school, adjectives are a description which can be applied to the subject or the object of the sentence, or can be conjugated from an adjective to describe the verb as an adverb. It's a similar thing in Japanese. In Japanese, there's two general families of adjectives, the e adjectives and the na adjectives, corresponding to the final character of the adjective in the dictionary form. Here we discuss the e adjective, ending with e. Here we have the word kawaii in green. Kawaii is an adjective which means cute. E adjectives can be directly applied to the subjects or objects of the sentences in which they are used. So a kawaii neko is a cute cat. Na adjectives, they end in na, but only when they're being used as a direct adjective to describe the subject or object. In other cases, the terminal na character is not written. Here we have the na adjective kirei. Kirei means beautiful. So if I'm directly describing the object or sentence, which is here is neko, meaning cat, it would be kirei na neko, a beautiful cat. However, if I'm conjugating this with a verb to describe the subject or object of the sentence, the word neko wa, the cat, neko wa kirei desu. The cat is beautiful. Here I don't use the na. So basically, the only difference between the two types of adjectives is the terminal characteristic and the conjugations in which they require. But in both cases, they can be applied to the subject or object of the sentence. In later videos, we can talk about conjugation of the adjectives to add verbs, but that's beyond the scope of this current video. Now let's talk about verbs. There are three general classes of verbs. There is the ichidan, yodan, and irregular verbs. Let's talk about the ichidan first. Ichidan have the easiest conjugation, but we're not talking about the conjugation in this video. All that matters is they have a written form which ends in the sound eru or iru. So you have the common ru character as well as some consonant before that. In the example given, I have the word taberu, which is the verb to eat. Taberu ends in the eru form, which makes it an ichidan verb and has an easier conjugation than yodan. Yodan verbs are the more complicated type of verbs. They're less restricted in the final character, simply ending in the u vowel in their dictionary form. They have more complicated conjugation, which we're not talking about here, but here are some examples that I've given below. We have nemu, which is to sleep, and nomu, which is to drink. So even though the first character is the same, you'll notice they still end in the common u form. And in fact, all verbs in Japanese end in u in their dictionary form. The third class of verbs are the irregular verbs. These are more rare in terms of the number of irregular verbs, but they tend to be the most common verbs in the Japanese language. These include kuru, which is to come, as in to arrive somewhere, which has different pronunciations depending on the conjugation. And the more common, suru, which conjugates to shi into different verb tenses. And this just means to do. So whenever you do something, you use suru. This can be applied to nouns to make them into actions. Finally, we're going to talk about particles. So particles are little bits of Japanese characters which are fit between different words. I'm not going to go too far into detail on particles today because they're complicated and they're not clear, but here's just an overview of how they work. These are used in a variety of different fashions, including the English prepositions. So anytime in English we have a preposition, the cat runs to the tree. I run towards the train station. I sleep at my house. These are handled by a specific set of single characters, usually, which give these prepositions. Particles can also represent possessions or properties. So my desk would be watashi no skue, where watashi means I and skue means desk. The no here is the possession. Some pronunciation marks also have their own particles, such as a terminal exclamation point, rhetorical question marker, and quotations for as giving a quoted statement. So, putting together what we've learned today, here we have the sentence, kawaii neko wa beddo ni nemasu. Can you figure out what this means? That's right, you guessed it. The cute cat sleeps on the bed. This has been Trevor in Tokyo. See ya next time.